The way that this pact has been handled is an insult to the Dáil, and it's an insult to the people who elected us. At every step of the way, the opposition has pleaded with the government to treat this issue carefully and to allow for sufficient oversight and debate. But at every step, the government has ignored that. The only actual scrutiny of the pact before today were 2 3-hour sessions at the Justice Committee in late April. And one of those sessions was only added at short notice when the government's cavalier approach to oversight was the subject of significant public anger. At the time, we were told the committee debate had to be curtailed because the government wanted to hold a Dáil vote on the pact in early May. And here we are, 6 weeks later, only now debating this pact in this House because the government buried it until after the elections. But people out there can see through that cynical manipulation. The Dáil debates on this pact this week are designed to give a veneer of democratic oversight, but in reality, this is being rammed through the Houses with almost no debate and no scrutiny. At the end, we will have an all-or-nothing vote instead of a vote on individual measures. Meanwhile, media reports today have revealed the plans to fast-track legislation giving effect to the Migration Pact. Clearly, the government views today's debate as nothing more than a rubber-stamping exercise. There's no intention to take any of our legitimate human rights concerns into account. Rushing this debate isn't just cynical, but it's dangerous, because the absence of considered and informed debate in this House has ramifications for our society. It allows misinformation and disinformation, particularly online, to spread like wildfire, with very little pushback from anyone in government. To make matters worse, we are still waiting for the government's long-promised communication strategy on migration. I don't know if it's going to materialise before the general election or if they're now waiting until after that. The lack of urgency, though, is quite incredible. This government's entire approach to migration has been panicked, reactive and shambolic, and it's leading to chaos, division and rising hate across the country. This persistent government mismanagement is causing real and lasting harm, particularly for minority communities who are experiencing racist abuse and violence as a direct result of incompetence. The level of virulent racism in this country is disgusting and it's shameful. The targeting of candidates from minority communities during the recent election was just one example of this, and it was a direct attack on our democracy. When is the government going to get it together on this? Because talking tough on migration and echoing the language of the far right isn't a strategy. We need a fair, humane and efficient asylum system. Crucially, we need to vastly increase resources, training and staff at the International Protection Office so claims can be dealt with speedily and fairly. Ceann Comhairle, there's been a lot of right-wing commentary about the Migration Pact, about borders and sovereignty. Bizarrely, much of this commentary, straight from the Tory handbook, has come from the Sinn Féin benches. As a result, much of the opposition to the Migration Pact has been framed in this divisive and insular way. I want to specifically distance myself from those kind of objections, and instead I want to talk about the very serious human rights concerns the Social Democrats have with this pact. Things like the border procedure, the potential for detention camps, a stripping away of the right to legal advice and the fiction of non-entry to Europe. We're far from the only ones who are expressing these concerns. Over 160 NGOs, including Oxfam, Amnesty, MSF, are opposed to the pact. All of these human rights experts agree that the pact is dangerous because the fundamental right to claim asylum and international protection, which refugees have enjoyed for more than 7 decades, is being eroded. Eve Geddy from Amnesty International stated this agreement will set back European asylum law for decades to come. Its likely outcome is a surge in suffering on every step of a person's journey to seek asylum in the EU, she said. Even former Green Party MEPs shared these concerns, which is why they voted against most of it at the European Parliament. We can't say that we weren't warned about this pact and what it will mean if all of it is enacted. It will lead to more people in detention centres at EU borders, including families with children and unaccompanied minors. It will also lead to reduced safeguards for people seeking asylum, substandard border asylum protection procedures, and more people refused a fair and full assessment of their asylum claims. None of the pressing problems facing our own asylum system and others across Europe will be solved by adopting the Pact in full. It won't solve the chronic underinvestment or the complete absence of the 6 state reception centres we were promised years ago. It won't prevent EU countries from continuing to use illegal and often violent pushback policies. In fact, it facilitates it. The Pact makes clear that outsourcing immigration processes will continue to be a core EU approach. It's one that the Taoiseach himself has endorsed. A few weeks ago, he said, processing asylum applications in a third country is worth considering. The EU Migration Pact allows some states the option to shift asylum applications to safe third countries. But what is the reality of that outsourcing? Our own cruel Rwanda policy, a policy that the Tories never managed to get off the ground, a policy of preferring that thousands of people drown rather than resourcing search and rescue missions. Since 2016, search and rescue missions led by member states in the Mediterranean have been replaced with deals supporting Coast Guard agencies in North Africa, which of course isn't news to Fine Gael, whose MEPs voted against a move to enhance search and rescue operations for migrants in 2019. People attempting the dangerous voyage across the Mediterranean are intercepted by these agencies and often end up in detention centres in appalling conditions, like in Libya. Facilitating torture and human rights abuses in third countries is not a policy we or anyone in this House should stand over. A good EU asylum law should instead include safe and legal routes to Europe and properly resourced search and rescue missions. The priority should be stopping the deaths at sea, investing in better asylum systems, and treating people humanely. Instead, we're looking at a system where many asylum seekers will be put through fast-track border systems, treated as de facto criminals, with their right to claim asylum seriously undermined. People processed in this way all across Europe, including children and families, will be sent to detention centres for 12 weeks. There will be no right to legal aid, in fact, no right to even claim they've reached the EU. The Minister has stated that Ireland will not introduce detention centres, but the legal basis will be there to facilitate them. We also have had absolutely no clarity on a whole range of issues, like where these centres will be located and whether children will be entitled to attend school or not. These aren't questions that we should still have, and the ambiguity is concerning. Ceann Comhairle, I would also like to address the dehumanising language that has become normalised when discussing migration. Asylum seekers are referred to as burdens or problems to be solved. They are not. They're human beings who deserve to be treated with compassion and decency. This should be the case whether their claims are successful or not. Not everything in this pact is bad. There are some measures that we should opt into. The Reception Conditions Directive would provide minimum agreed standards of accommodation so asylum seekers would not sleep rough. The Solidarity Mechanism would ensure cooperation across member states so that individual member states on the borders of Europe will not be left to deal with large numbers of arrivals in isolation. The Eurodac regulation is largely welcome in terms of information sharing, but there needs to be clarification around serious data protection concerns. For example, if the fingerprints of a 6-year-old refugee are taken for their safety and to ensure that they're not being trafficked, we need to know how long their fingerprints would remain on that database. There are some sensible and necessary aspects to this pact, but they are grouped with regulations that are designed to cause absolute misery to incredibly vulnerable people who arrive on our shores. We're in a really unique position in this country. We don't have to opt into every measure, so it is bizarre that the government is doing so. Adopting this pact in full sends the wrong message globally. It sends a message that we're willing to downgrade the right to claim asylum, that we're willing to turn a blind eye to human rights abuses when it suits us. That isn't a message that the Social Democrats can stand over, and for that reason we'll be voting against the Migration Pact.